No two users are alike. Photoshop can be customized to suit a wide variety of needs. Let's find out how. Photoshop has dozens of preferences settings, but fortunately, most of them can be left at their default values. Let's take a look at the ones you should consider changing to make it easier to follow along in upcoming lessons. To get to Preferences, we're going to go up to the Edit menu, scroll all the way down to the bottom where we see Preferences. I'll point out this is on a Windows machine. If you're using a Mac, you're going to find the Preferences menu located underneath the Photoshop menu. In Preferences, we're going to start with General. Now, the very first thing I would like for you to do here is go up to the Use Shift key for tool switch and turn it off, uncheck it. With this disabled, we're going to be able to move quickly from one tool to the next using keyboard shortcuts without having to invoke the Shift key, a huge time saver. While we're here, let's turn off Enable Flick Panning as well. This is an interesting little piece of eye candy, but it's far from essential, and quite frankly, if you've never seen it before, it takes a little bit of getting used to, so we won't use that. Let's go down now to Interface. I would like for you to turn off the Show Tooltips box. What's a tooltip? Well, there you see it. It shows up in yellow and it shows up over menu items and tools, giving you little hints and tips about what they do. But who needs tooltips? You've got me, so let's turn that off. We'll move down to Performance, and I just want to verify a couple of things here. Under Memory Usage, I just want you to make sure that this arrow is not dragged all the way over to the right. Now that Photoshop has 64-bit versions for both the PC and Mac, it is possible to drag it all the way to the right and use up every last ounce of memory on your system. But for our purposes, we really want to be somewhere in the 60 to 70% range. So just verify that you're somewhere along there. Wouldn't go past 70% for our uses. That'll be fine. Down here under GPU settings, we've got an Enable OpenGL drawing option. Sounds geeky, but feel free to check it. This will give us access to some visual interface enhancements. Now, if it's grayed out, that means your video card doesn't support this feature, but don't despair. This functionality is nice, but not crucial. I'll give you a heads up whenever I show features that require an OpenGL compatible video card. Finally, let's go down to cursors. Now, I just want to verify a couple of things. Make sure that under painting cursors, you've got it set to normal brush tip. And then, to the right under Other Cursors, please set it to Standard. With these two settings, we'll guarantee that we are looking at the same thing on my screen and your screen once we start painting and brushing and all that other cool stuff. And that's it. Our preferences are set up and we're ready to move on. The color settings in Photoshop are often overlooked, but with just a few changes to the defaults, we can avoid color issues down the road. We're going to go back to our old friend, the Edit menu. Scroll down to Color Settings. Note that to the right of Color Settings, we've got a keyboard shortcut command of Shift-Control-K on a Windows machine, Shift-Command-K on a Mac. This is the keyboard shortcut that you can use to directly invoke the Color Settings dialog. So as you're reaching up and pulling down menus, keep an eye on the keyboard shortcut commands where available, and if you find yourself going to the same menu numerous times, you can start using that keyboard shortcut. It saves a ton of time. Here we are in Color Settings. I want to start with a preset, North America General Purpose 2. If you don't see that in this pull down, simply click, open it up, and select North America General Purpose 2. We're just going to make a couple of changes. For working spaces under RGB, we're going to set it to Adobe RGB 1998, a much bigger color space than sRGB. For gray, we're going to use Gray Gamma 2.2, a very common working space for grayscale images. And color management policies, these all look great at Preserve Embedded Profiles. What we are going to do is check the Missing Profiles Ask When Opening box. If we ever get an image that does not have a profile, doesn't have Adobe RGB 1998, Gray Gamma 2.2, sRGB, what have you, it's good for us to know about that because then we're going to have to make a couple of decisions about how to handle that image. Now, under Settings at the top, since we've made some changes, notice that it says Custom. And if you don't want to have to remember these settings and keep reapplying them in case they get messed up, you can simply go to this Save button, and we'll click Save, give your file a name. We could call this Total Training, for example. Photoshop has already set this up to save in a special settings folder so it knows where to look for it, and simply hit the Save button and you've got this custom color settings saved that you can reuse anytime you need it. For now, we're going to just hit Cancel. but we are going to hit OK so that we can continue working with these settings. It's very easy to take Photoshop from its off-the-shelf appearance to a customized setup that fits your own specific needs. In Chapter 1, we took our first brief look at workspaces. Now we'll get to customize our own. Before we do that, however, it's time to go back to our old friend, the Edit menu. Scroll down to Menus. And let's open this up. This dialog box allows us to do something very interesting. If I open up the File menu here, and you can see below File is all of the menu items that are listed in Photoshop. If I open up File, we see these visibility icons next to New, Open, Browse and Bridge, etc. If I click, for example, on New, on the visibility, what I've done is I have hidden that New option in the File menu. I could do the same thing for Open. That means that when we go back into Photoshop and we go under File, we will not see New and we will not see Open. The first menu item that we will see is Browse and Bridge. Photoshop ships with a lot of menu items. Now, if there are a lot of items that you feel you're never ever going to use and you want to declutter and compact things a little bit, you can simply come up here into Menus and turn things off. You can always come back and turn them on, so you're not throwing them out of the program, you're just hiding them. Let's take a look now at keyboard shortcuts, because here's where you can really do something powerful. Again, we've got a lot of our menu commands here. I'll open up File. In an earlier lesson, I talked about the importance of using keyboard shortcuts. Well, here they all are listed. For example, the keyboard shortcut for New is Control-N on the PC, Command-N on the Mac. I can go and click on this, and if I'm not happy with that keyboard shortcut, I could change it. I could change it to any key combination that I want. If there's an item in this list that does not have a keyboard shortcut, such as, let's say, Open a Smart Object, I can click in this empty area. It gives me a box, and I can type in my own keyboard shortcut. I'll type in here, let's see, Control/ on the PC. Now on a Mac, you'd have to include the Command key for menu items, so maybe Command Control/ would work. Hit the Add Shortcut button, and voila! Open a Smart Object now has a custom keyboard shortcut that I've created. And again, you can do this for any menu item in Photoshop. You can either alter the existing shortcuts or add a shortcut to an item that doesn't have one. I'm going to go up and click Cancel because for right now we're going to leave keyboard shortcuts and menus the way that they are standard shipping in Photoshop. So I'm going to click outside this shortcut box, then hit Cancel, and now we're ready to dig into our workspace. Back in Chapter 1, we had set up in the Essentials workspace, and I'd just like for you to verify that you're still there. Make sure that Essentials is your chosen workspace. We're going to start from here, but we are going to make some changes to the neighborhood. First thing that I'm going to do is go down here in these panels. I'm going to get rid of the Swatches panel. I'm going to click, drag that out. Hit the X button to delete it. I'm going to do the same for the Brush Presets panel. Drag that out and delete it. I'm going to close up a little bit of space here with the Navigator and Info so our layers, channels, paths can have a lot more space down at the bottom. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to take Paths, click, drag that out. To undock it, I'm going to get rid of that. What I'm going to do now is go up to the Window menu, and I'm going to choose Histogram. I want to add a histogram. It's bundled by default with Actions. I don't want Actions, so I'm going to click on Actions, pull that tab out, and delete that. I am going to now go and add adjustments so that we can see our adjustment layers. Adjustments is linked with masks by default. For now, I'm going to delink those, so take masks, click that out, and hit the X key. Now, I don't want Mini Bridge and I don't want the History panel in here, so I'm going to click on this double dotted horizontal line, drag that out, hit the X, close those two. Now, we've freed up a little bit of space, but we've got a lot more room in layers and channels. We've still kept Navigator and Info, but now we've got histogram and adjustments, and those are going to come in handy over the next couple of chapters. Keep in mind, if we go back and look at our workspace switcher, it still says Essentials. The workspace switcher actually auto-saves or auto-updates whenever you make a change. So right now, Photoshop is letting us call this workspace Essentials. What we want to do, though, is create a brand new workspace. So we're going to click on this double arrow, go down near the bottom where it says New Workspace. We're going to name it. Let's call this TT for Total Training Demo. So I'm going to go TT and Demo. Notice under the capture box, it gives us the option to save any custom keyboard shortcuts or menu alterations that we've made. Now, we haven't actually made any, so we can leave those unchecked, but if you do make changes to those, you can save those with the workspace. We're just going to hit the Save button now, and we now have a workspace called TT Demo. I'm going to drag this double vertical line out for a second just so we can take a look at a couple of the workspaces, because here's something that's important to remember. We said earlier that the workspaces are working in an autosave function. So if we choose TT Demo here and we go back and choose Essentials, those workspaces look the same. We had modified Essentials and then created a new workspace. What we want to do now, so that we don't get confused between these two, is we want to click on Essentials. I'm going to right click on the PC, control click on the Mac on the word Essentials, and I'm going to reset Essentials. This will take it back to its factory defaults. So now we have the Essentials that we started with, and if I click back on TT Demo, this is the workspace that we're going to be using in the next couple of chapters. Photoshop power users swear by keyboard shortcuts and rarely, if ever, visit a menu. Even at this stage of your Photoshop experience, it pays to learn a few of the basic shortcuts. So let's go up to the File menu, and these are going to be system-wide shortcuts that are going to work in any program you're using. For New, on the PC, it's Control-N. On the Mac, it's Command-N. Open, as in open a file, Control-O on the PC, Command-O on the Mac. Close, very important. Instead of clicking on that little small tiny X, we can do Control-W on the PC and Command-W on the Mac. And let's not forget Save, which we should be doing often, Control-S on the PC, Command-S on the Mac. In the Edit menu, we have the all-important Undo, which we will make use of throughout this training, Control-Z on the PC, Command-Z on the Mac. So let's put our newfound mastery of these basic keyboard shortcuts to use. We're going to open up a file. Now, we're not going to go to the File menu. We are going to hit on the keyboard, Control-O on the PC, Command-O on the Mac. That brings up our Open dialog. We're looking in Chapter 2 in our Project Files folder, and we have the File Guides. We're simply going to click on it to highlight it. Now, instead of mousing down and pressing on this Open button, here's our next keyboard shortcut. Anytime you have a button on Mac or Windows that's highlighted and it's active, waiting for you to invoke it, you can do that by pressing either the Return key or the Enter key on your keyboard. So I'm going to press Return, and that automatically invokes the Open button. Now we have a missing profile dialog box. If you followed me carefully in Lesson 2 when we set our color settings, you should be seeing this warning box that says the document guides.tif does not have an embedded RGB profile. What would you like to do? Well, in this case, we're going to assign Adobe RGB. That happens to be our working RGB color space because you did follow me in Lesson 2, correct? So we're going to select Assign Working RGB. And we're going to hit OK with the mouse? No, we're not. We are going to notice that the OK button is highlighted. It's active, waiting for us to commit with either the Return or the Enter key. So I'm going to press the Enter key. That invokes OK, and up comes our file. We talked in Chapter 1 about using the F key to cycle through our various screen modes. I'm going to press the F key once to get us into the full screen mode with menu bar. Now, our next little look at handy shortcuts is going to focus on the hand tool. We saw in an earlier lesson how we can simply go and select it in the Tools panel, but instead of that, we can press the space bar. So simply by pressing the space bar, no matter what tool is active, we invoke the hand tool, and I can simply click, drag, and move this image around on the screen just as if I had selected the hand tool in the Tools panel. When we talk about increasing or decreasing the magnification or the view of this, we noted that the Zoom tool does that, and I also gave you earlier a shortcut which I will reiterate here. On the PC, it is Control plus Command plus on the Mac. To zoom in, no matter what tool is active, we can zoom in. We don't have to go and select the Zoom tool. If we want to zoom out, we can do on the PC Control minus on the Mac, Command minus, and we can zoom out. So no matter what tool we have active, we can zoom in and we can zoom out on an image. Now that's fine for just general zooms, but what if we want to zoom into a specific area on the image? Well, we can do that too, just with keyboard shortcuts. On the PC, we're going to press Control spacebar, that's Command spacebar on the Mac. Notice that we have the magnifying glass with the plus icon, but what we're going to do is click and drag a marquee around the area in which we want to magnify. So I'm going to go to the upper left corner of this red square, click and drag, and you can see those outlines, and if I let it go, that is now the exact area to which we have zoomed into. If you're not seeing this same behavior when you click and drag, select the zoom tool, that's the magnifying glass icon, then go up in the options bar and make sure that the scrubby zoom option is unchecked. If I need to zoom back out, I can do Control minus on the PC, Command minus on the Mac, bring us down to a smaller view. If I want to go to Fit to Screen view, I can do Control 0 on the PC, Command 0 on the Mac. If I would like to view this document at 100%, I can select Control 1 on the PC, Command 1 on the Mac. And there we go, we're at 100%. So I know this is a lot to throw at you in one chunk, but get used to these things over time and you will save many hours as you work in Photoshop. Photoshop makes it very easy to measure, align, and accurately place objects. Let's take a look at how to do that. We're going to use the same image that we had open in the previous lesson, so if it's still up on your screen, you're one step ahead of the game. I'm going to go to Control O on the PC, Command O on the Mac, open, go to Chapter 2, select Guides, press the Return key. I'm going to assign Adobe RGB as our working color space. I'm going to press Return. Now we have the document up in our window. If you have this open from the previous lesson, you are probably in one of the full screen modes. What I'd like for you to do is go up here to the top to the mode switcher and set your document to standard screen mode. Now the first thing we're going to take a look at is rulers. And how do we view the rulers? We go up to the view menu and click on rulers. Note the shortcut command of Control R on the PC, Command R on the Mac. And now we have rulers around our document. The great thing here is that it tells us the dimensions. We can see that this document is 10 inches by 10 inches. It's a square. Now this is showing in inches. If we right click or control click on the Mac on this image, we could change the dimensions to pixels, centimeters, millimeters, points, picas, or percents. Lots of choices here. Here we'll leave it at inches, but note that you have those options. So it's all well and good that we know that here is 0 and there is 10, so we have 10 inches across. What if we want to know the measurement of an object in the document? For example, we want to know what's the width of this red square. Well, we can go over here to the upper left corner of the rulers, click and drag, and notice we see these horizontal and vertical lines. That is our origin point. We are setting our origin point now to the edge of this red square, and we know that now it is 3 inches across. 3 inches left to right, 3 inches top to bottom. So you can drag your origin point anywhere you want in the image. Now if you'd like to reset it back to its default 0 at the edge of the document, you simply go back here in the upper right hand corner and double click, and we are back to 0. We also have another tool for measurement, the ruler tool. If we go down here where the eyedropper icon is, we click, hold it down, we can see that underneath here is a ruler tool. Now watch what we can do. If we didn't know that this square was 3 inches, we could simply take the ruler, set it on the left edge of the square, drag it over to the right edge, and if we let go, note up here in the options bar, L1 is our length. That is showing us that it is 3 inches. If you're seeing a drastically different number here, make sure that in the options bar you have Use Measurement Scale unchecked. Well, with a 3 inch by 3 inch square, how long is the diagonal? I wasn't very good in math, so I'm going to have to actually measure this. Staying at that upper left hand corner, we bring it all the way down here to the right, and we can see that the diagonal of a square is 4.2 inches and some change. So that's great. We've got the ruler tool that we can use to measure lots of different things. We've also got guides that we can use. I'm going to go and click on the marquee tool just to get rid of that display of the ruler. And I'm going to move right up into the ruler bar, click and drag down to the image, and I've got a horizontal guide. I'm going to move over here to the ruler bar on the left, click and drag, and I've got a vertical guide. Now guides are great for aligning objects along their edges. You'll notice down here in the Layers palette that we have 3 separate layers. We're going to go into layers in a future chapter, but for right now, the thing to understand about layers is that they allow us to move objects individually. So let's go to the Tool panel, select the Move tool. Make sure you have Auto Select checked. That's very important. With this checked, we're going to be able to click on this red square, drag, and move just that red square, leaving the other squares alone. So you can see we can easily align this up against the guides. Now you'll notice that when you drag, you sort of feel a tiny little magnetic pull that's letting you butt right up against that edge without spilling over. That's because we've got Snap to Guides on. In the View menu, you can see this snap has a check mark next to, and what is it snapping to? Well, one of the things it's snapping to is guides. So that's a handy feature. We don't have to sort of guess of when we're there. You can kind of feel the tug of it snapping your image right there. Now once we've placed guides, we can move them. You can see the cursor turning into a double vertical line with arrows on either side. So that means that we are selecting the guide, and I can drag it in any direction that I want to. I can do the same for the horizontal. If you're finished with the guides and you want to just get rid of them, you can go up to View and Clear Guides, and that is going to throw your guides away. Now the last thing I want to talk to you about is something called Smart Guides. Let's go up to the View menu, and we're going to go to Show and Show Smart Guides. Well, nothing has happened, but watch what happens as we start to move this red square. As I move it over, look at that. As soon as I am centered over the blue square, I get 3 magenta smart guides. It's telling me that I've aligned in the center and I've aligned on the left and right edges. If I move further to the right, it shows me now that I have aligned to the center and to the right edge of that blue square. If I keep going, look at this. Now I'm completely aligned bottom edge to top edge. Smart guides are great when you're trying to just visually place things very quickly, but you want to be precise. So you can see that we have a lot of ways to move and align images and also measure them. These are going to come in very handy as you start to work with discrete elements in Photoshop and put them together into a single image.